Tolyamory, yes. I'm sure you've heard of consensual non-monogamy and polyamory and polycules, entire pods of people that you sleep with. But now there's a new term for people who turn a blind eye to being cheated on, basically. It's cuckoldry as a sexual orientation.
Do you remember last Friday when I said one of the biggest problems in society right now is we have to name everything? You
have to label everything.
Everything has to have like a clinical sounding name. This doesn't need a clinical sounding name.
Yes.
Brief interjection. Is this going to be about having tolerance for people who cheat?
Yes.
Yeah, having tolerance specifically for being cheated on. Yeah, which just makes you a cuck.
Yep.
Basically. So this term was created by relationship columnist and podcaster Dan Savage. Being polyamorous means that a person is, quote, willing to turn a blind eye to a lap dance or a brief affair after years of marriage.
But obviously, Dan Savage.
They instead focus on all the ways their spouse demonstrates their commitment and shows their love to somehow make the cheating tolerable. These people aren't fools or dupes. They're not to be pitied. They know what they signed up for and long ago made peace with what they got. They're willing to put up with it, a certain amount of it, reconciled to it, willing to tolerate it. They are, in a word, polyamorous.
Okay, in a betting market, what would be the odds that Ben Savage cheated on his husband and is on the Giant Cope tour?
Well, he's straight, right?
No.
I think Dane was just making a point by saying
he's gay. He's gay, right?
So
I don't know who
he
Dan Savage
left
is.
a comment about his spouse named Terry. So I don't know if that's a female or male Terry.
Sounds
But he
like a
said,
man.
obviously Terry is allowed to ogle and not just ogle other men in front of me. It's the secret to our success.
Is this the guy that's always on Bill Maher?
I don't know.
Okay,
Maybe.
so I'm pretty sure I know who he is.
Yeah.
So ogling, is that's
And more than ogling.
okay, so that, if he would have stopped at ogling, there might have been you're allowed to look, but you're not allowed
There's looking and there's ogling, though.
Exactly. Those are
those are different.
very different things. Those
Yeah.
are very different things.
Yeah, so it's a way of maintaining your relationship but not endorsing the non-monogamous behavior. And this kind of relationship is common, probably unfortunately the most common form of non-monogamy because it's not consensual.
It's also dishonest inherently because usually they would find out after the fact. The guy doesn't go, "Hey, honey, I'm going to get a lap dance. I'll see you in a couple of hours." He comes back smelling like glitter and lip balm, and then
Comes back smelling like Victoria's Secret bombshell.
Correct. And then she has some pointed questions for him.
Dude, I feel like the world is in, it's kind of split in half. It's all sorts of binaries, but there's a binary that seems to be, religious people that adopt kind of attempt to adopt the morality of their religion of choice. And then there's the other half of the binary that is complete disregard of that and kind of whereas the first binary used to have the insistence of people kind of following their way of life. For some reason, they've kind of let go of that proselytizing, or I don't know if that's the correct word, of that insistence that their way of life is the adequate one and that people kind of, I don't know, that marketing aspect of it. Whereas this side of it is rampant in insisting that their intellectually inconsistent point of view, like how does I'm going through it live on air. Like, for example, I'm trying to think. So these are the Tolyamory people I feel spiritually are the same people that would be on Me Too.
Okay. In what way?
They just hop on trends.
Yeah, no, but it's all. Oh, so Me Too is kind of like, women have had a rough end of it where they've kind of had to keep their mouth quiet about uncomfortable and unnecessary and unwelcome sexual experiences. And then there's this side. It's like, if you have an unwelcomed and unagreed upon sexual experience, keep your mouth shut.
Well, they're kind of framing it as a lifestyle choice for the person who's being cheated on. We got a $20 from BMF Nate Dogg. Don't leave a loyal man just because he's occasionally unfaithful. Loyal.
The example,
Loyal, huh?
one of the examples they give in this article is Bill and Hillary Clinton, which is insane
Yes.
because that is basically an arranged marriage for the sake of political power.
Right, true.
That's not the same
Most
thing
people
at all.
are not in that kind of position at all.
But what's funny is that they can't even exist within an incredibly loose paradigm, which is like polyamory. It's like, okay, so here's this other thing. It's like you pretend to be monogamous, but you're not, and when it's your turn to get cheated on, you're kind of cool with it.
You're doing it for
back in
public
the day, this was
appearances.
just called being unhappy in your relationship.
Yeah.
That's what this was.
Yeah.
It was.
Some people would call this settling. Some
Yes.
people would call this giving up on life.
Well, this is my problem.
Giving
with
up
all
on
of it,
your
right?
marriage.
Like back in the day, there would have been an ambiguous. There would be no actual term for this. It's just an ambiguous relationship state that you and your friends would observe one of your other friends who is in a relationship like this. You know they're unhappy, but they've made their choices, so you have to let them do what they do. You can criticize it. You can tell them you think it's wrong for them. But with this, now that person can come back and be like, well, you just don't understand. It's got a name. Like
that means my identity is valid.
I'm practicing this. It's not that I've settled. It's that I'm practicing Tolyamory. Not that I put up with the fact that my husband likes to go, get lap dances from strippers.
Yes, they said some people may not think monogamy is realistic or possible, acknowledging that infidelity is a likelihood. But it needs to be kept discreet in order for people to save face and maintain the public appearance of monogamy. It preserves the person's innocence if they pretend it isn't happening. And they said, furthermore, societies where gender equality is less advanced tend to have dual standards when it comes to these expectations. Women
So
are
the
expected to tolerate their husband's infidelity while remaining monogamous.
So it's got nothing to do with religion or anything. It's just that the Middle East has a lot of Tolyamory.
But I guess in the West, Tolyamory is mainly
How
for
progressive of
men
them.
who are being cheated on because their wives are sexually empowered or something like that.
Well, I mean, not the strip club thing points towards men being the ones doing that, right? The dude going to the strip club and doing that. That points to men, not women doing the cheating.
Well, they're talking about the wage gap, and there's also an infidelity gap that we need to close. So women need to close the infidelity gap in socially progressive
Close the
societies.
gap. I love this.
The other thing that this screams up to me is just a desire to make you believe that a committed relationship is somehow a figment of your imagination and impossible when everyone knows that it is possible, but it's a high level form of gaslighting from
We
the
got
public.
a 20 from Alfred LaRock. This sounds like every spouse of NBA players
Yeah.
or rock stars. Can I include the three of you in my photorealistic fellowship tattoo? Are you famous enough to sue for copyright? Keep up the good work.
I would never put a tattoo of myself on anything.
I would rather you didn't include me in your tattoo. Sorry, bro.
Yeah.
But Dane's
I did the
saying
post for you.
he's cool with it.
I mean,
Also,
it'd be funny to add to the list.
There's another thing that people talk about here. They say they always have the discussion about who cheats more, men or women, and I think
Statistically, women.
The conclusion tends to be that men talk about it more,
Yeah.
women do it more, but don't talk about it.
Women get away with it
Women do it
more.
as much, but don't talk about it. So you don't know.
Well, if you're relying on self-reported
Yeah.
statistics, you're never going to know for sure. I
Correct.
think that some self-reports say 60% for men and 40% for women in married couples. But at the same time, that's maybe the men are just more likely to self-report.
Or the women will just give it a name, like an entanglement, perhaps.
An entanglement that I've forgiven myself for. I forgave myself.
They will always forgive themselves for their polyamorous behavior.
By the way, this is like related but unrelated. I've been listening a lot to like Andrew Wilson on YouTube. I don't know if you guys know.
I've
who
heard
that
of him,
is. Yeah. He's on the Whatever podcast a lot now. Kind of like a debater person, and he completely convinced me on this, and I don't know why I even needed convincing. That if you're not married by the church, like don't even get married at all. Like secular marriage is not a thing.
Okay.
And so this is kind of one of those ramifications of secular marriages once more, because naturally none of this behavior is endorsed or will ever be endorsed by any church.
Hopefully.
that I know. I mean, you know,
You never know.
you never know. Statistically, probably not. But if it's just secular marriages doing what they do at this point, like, who cares?
Now,
I mean, I kind of disagree with that, actually. Even though I'm Catholic, I disagree that you, in order to have a valid marriage, you need to get married in the church, because I maybe I'm incorrect about this, and if you know more about the subject, correct me. But I was always taught that
It's a sacrament.
in Catholic teaching, yes, marriage is a sacrament, but all marriages are assumed to be valid until proven otherwise, even if they are outside of the church. That's what I was always
basically
taught.
giving them the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because the institution of marriage is something that is natural.
I want to go back. So the super chat mentioned basketball, like the wives of basketball players, right? So in that case, that would be true. They are not fools or dupes. They have made calculated decisions because of the financial upside of that marriage to unfortunately stay, even though the behavior is not that of an actual good spouse.
Yeah. For
That's
people
very
in the middle
different.
class, they would probably be thinking, we'll stay together for the kids.
Yes, that's very different. Yeah, it's an interesting discussion, but I just say stop giving everything a name. You pathologize it and you turn it into an identity when you give literally everything some type of clinical name. It doesn't need that. It's just one of the many aberrations of human behavior that explains and shows what we as people will put up with in certain situations. That doesn't mean it needs to have a clinical term.
Also, don't get married if you are so accepting of infidelity and you don't think that monogamy is realistic or even possible. It's clearly possible for a huge amount of married people.
And if you're just doing it for the tax breaks,
I mean, it's just pointless, right? I understand that, like, some people can't accept the level of commitment, but then don't get married.
Which is what essentially, you know, because I feel like a lot of secular marriages go in with the, man, you know, the worst thing that can happen, you get a divorce, it's an uncomfortable period and yada yada. But, you know,
Yeah, someone commented, people when they're single, they pretend to be when they're dating, they pretend to be single. When they're married, they pretend that they're dating. And it makes everything have an easy escape plan.
Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.